Okay, so his question is he's created a list. Okay, maybe Ayan, could you share a code and show us? So his question is he's created a list with 10 elements and then he created a set using that list and printed the set. The set did not contain 10 elements, it had less than 10 elements. So he wants to know what is the reason for that. So Ayan, if you have the code, that would be great. Let's look at it. I know the answer, but I want you guys to answer it. So I think everyone would be able to visualize it better once you share the code. Do you have the code handy? Okay, you're creating it, fine. Okay, so Ayan, while you're coding, just try these two variations. First, create a list with elements that are repeated, that should be duplicate elements. And then when you create a set using this list containing duplicates, your set would only be having the distinct elements. It would have gotten rid of all the duplicates. So when you print the set, it will just give you the distinct set of elements. And then case 2, create a list which has no duplicates and then create a set out of it. And tell me what you observed from the two. And if your question is answered from this. Okay, you have this list and which has duplicates, yes. Then you have created a set with this list and you're printing the set. Okay, fine. Let's see what it prints. Okay, fine. So yeah, that's the answer to your question. So if you look at the elements, it's clear that all the duplicates have been removed. You only see the distinct elements here. And now if you change the input list to have only distinct elements, then both the set and list will have the same elements and the same count and the same elements. Okay. Right? So now it has exactly the same content as the list because there were no duplicates. Okay, so sets can be used to remove the duplicates, and then you can use the set data set for all the operations that you've learned in set theory. All of you have learned set theory in math, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Intersection, union, difference, and all that. So everything that you could do in set theory can be done using the set data types here. So you can create two sets with elements, and then you can find the union, you can find the intersection, you can find set A minus set B, you can find the complement, you can do all the set operations using the set data type. Let me know if you have questions. I want to close this discussion on list, tuples, sets and dictionaries today, so that next class we can start with functions. So let's practice all the code. The recorded lectures are already there. In case you want to refer to it, you can refer to it. I'm right here, you can ask me questions. But let's finish this topic today. So just listening to the videos will not help. Unless you practice the code, you won't remember it. Oh, I'm not sharing the code, sorry. Okay, this one here. Okay, so you need to complete this file today. I want you to practice each line of code, not just practice. I want you to be clear on what I have done. I have shown you the practice code, the basic code for almost all types of common functionalities that we use, from list, tuple, set, dictionary, data types. So once you finish this, you will have a basic foundation, and then you can always look at Python documentation to see what other functions are available. Remember, we had created a tuple of names and then a list of marks, and then you wrote a simple loop to read the marks of a specific student and also change this list of marks into a grade system, right? Less than 50 as some grade 5 and 50 to 60 as grade 6 and so on, something like that. So what you had done was, when you were looking to read the marks of a specific student, you looked at the index number at which this student name was there in the tuple, the names tuple, and then you read the same index in the marks list, because you knew the tuple has names in the same order as the marks in the marks list. So it's kind of complicated. Instead of using list and tuples for this case, if we had used dictionary, we could have stored this in a key value pair, where key would be the student name, value would be the marks. So if now I wanted to read the marks of a specific student, I wanted to know the marks of Etisham, all I would do is read this key, read the value associated with this key from the dictionary. So it becomes a one-line code. I wouldn't need a loop at all. Okay, so your dictionary is like this. So there's a complete video on dictionary. You can look at it later if you haven't already. So this is the key and this is the value associated with the key. So you can have the names as key here and the value could be marks. Okay, so when, let's say this variable, this dictionary was called marks class A. Then if I wanted to read the marks obtained by Bushra, what I would do is just the variable name and I would just supply the key, and this statement would return the value associated with the key Bushra. Okay, so dictionary, in dictionary, the elements are not indexed. Like you don't read things using the index number. Like in the case of list and tuple, you used index, right? Everything was indexed. 0 was the first element, then index 1 was the second element, and so on. So you could use the index number to read a particular element. Here it's not indexed. You use the key to read the value associated with this key. So depending on what type of data you're dealing with, you will have to take this decision about what data type you want to use. Okay, so this first part of code, we are just initializing a tuple, initializing a list. What is the difference between, key difference between a tuple and a list?
Lists are mutable and the tuples are not immutable.
Yes, right. So once you learn functions, you will better understand, where tuples can be used. Okay. So if you don't want the data to be modified, it is better to use a tuple. So if you are maybe returning data, let's discuss this when we discuss functions next week. So, okay. So in cases where you are exchanging data and you are not, so the data is just being read, transferred from here to here, you could use tuple. If your intention is that, if you see that the data could need modification, in-place modification, then only you'll use list. So they have been designed. So you go through the video to know the details, but the data types, the type of functionalities they provide, if you look at their internal implementation, they have been designed in that way. Some data types are designed in a way that they are not meant for modification, so their read is very fast. So if you're just looking to read data, then you would use those data types. Some data types are designed for read and write, then their implementation would be different. The way they are stored in the memory, the way they are read from the memory, the entire implementation is dependent on the kind of operation they are designed for.
Okay. Ma'am, do we have any data type which does not even let us to read what is the data is stored in it?
Okay, but why would you need that? That's the question. I mean, so each data type should have some use. So depending on what you want that data structure to do, you will design it accordingly. We definitely want read, right? We can choose to make it mutable or immutable, but we definitely want it to be read. I can't think of anything which does not need to be read now. So if you're saying it's read is not supported, then there has to be some other purpose for that data type, right? What is it for them? It has to be read, because why are you storing data in a program first of all? So either you want to refer to it later, or you want to do some manipulation to it. In any case, the data will always go to your computer hardware memory, and you will have to read it from there to do anything from it.
Okay, ma'am. I was just saying, like, if we don't want to share someone, we don't want someone to let our data to be seen by him or her, then that's the security that we have to do something. That's fine.
Okay. So you are discussing about the case where you have certain type of data, but you want to put some rules as to who can view it and who can edit it, and then there might be users who are not allowed to read or write or do anything on the data. Yes, right? So yeah, so that's a different thing. Yes, so in that case also, the data type is, if whenever there is data in the picture, the data is going into memory. And then if you are building a software application, you can always have layers putting all these authentication and authorization rules. So authentication is like, okay, so like when you log into something, right? If you have Gmail, so when you open gmail.com, you provide your username and password and you authenticate, then you're able to use your Gmail. And then within Gmail, maybe there are different type of subscriptions. As a user, depending on what type of subscription you have taken, you are allowed to do certain things. Some other user has taken some business version. Okay, I don't know if Gmail has a business version. There is G Suite. But other than that, I'm just taking a generic example that whatever software you're logging into, suppose that software has some basic membership and has some extended business membership. So depending on what kind of membership you have, you might have access to more data and you might be able to do more things once you log in. So there is authentication, there is authorization. So in case of authorization, your data is there, right? But your software has been implemented in a way that you have created rules as to who can even read the data or who can do modifications on the data and who can access what type of data. Got it? So that is definitely possible. Okay, but at the core, the memory, you can't do that at the memory level. The data is right there, but you can have layer above it to create such rules. Like even when in Google Drive, if you create a file, you have an option to share that file with anyone, right? Have you tried sharing files on Google Drive?
Yes, ma'am, it has the option.
Right, so you share with people. So if there is also an option where I think you can share with link, or you can specify the email ID. So only those people who have the link or with whom you've shared the document can look at it. And so that's one part. The other part is, even after they are able to look at the data, then you have defined the kind of access they have, whether they can just view it or they can edit it, right? There is a viewer, editor, different type of membership you have. Let me see if I can show you that. So if I create this file, I'm just dummy something here, and if I share it, name, okay, fine, I have this shared. Okay, so now I'm sharing this file. I created a file with whatever data in it. That data is being stored somewhere, right? Okay, so it's on cloud, so the data is somewhere on the cloud. Fine. Okay, now I'm sharing it with people. I have specified the email IDs here. Here you have this option of what kind of access you want these people to have, whether they can just view, or they can also edit, or they can comment on it. Okay, I've never tried this one. So you have different types of access. So yes, your question is good, but it's more complex to actually implement it. Okay, so where were we? Yes. Yeah, so you can, so how does Python know whether it's a list or a tuple?
Ma'am, to say like, is it a square bracket or a round bracket?
Yeah, right. So this the type of bracket that you use will tell Python. Okay, fine. So okay, this part is simple. Then you have few functions are displayed right here. The sort function, the append, the insert. Okay, what does sort do? Let's print it and see. Okay, so I have this list. Okay, if I don't sort it, let's do one thing. Let's put this name here in the first place. So what is element at index 0 in this list?
Ronak.
Wrong.
Okay, so now let's print it. It's exactly the way I defined it, right? Index 0 is Ronak, index 1 is Arnav, and so on. Now, before printing it, I will sort it. So this is how I want you to try all this code. When you try it, whatever question comes to your mind, just try it. Worst case, there'll be an exception and error trace. That's it. So worst case, you'll end up into an error trace, but that's fine. So now I have invoked this sort method. And what did the sort method do?
Ma'am, just give it in an order, in a dictionary way, like in alphabetical order, arrange it.
Yes, right. So it has done an in-place sort. It has modified the same list. Okay, there is a different way of sorting. If you didn't want the original list to be modified, suppose you wanted the original list to be as it is, but you wanted a sorted copy of it, then you sort using a different function, which is shown here down. It's called sorted. So you can use that. What that will do is it will sort the list, but it will give you a copy, a clone of it. So your original list is still safe, but this one has done an in-place sort. And append is adding an element at the end. And then you can also add element at a specific index. Okay, you can read the index of an element. So if this element isn't there, it should give you an appropriate output. It will give you an error if it isn't found, right? It gives you a value error because this is not there in the list. If it was there in the list, because you are asking it to give you, you're not asking if you look at this function name, you're not asking the list that, tell me whether this element is there or not. If the function was meant to do that, then it would have returned to you a friendly message saying that, okay, I tried to find this, but I couldn't find this element isn't there. But here you are like authoritatively asking it to return the index. You're saying that, go find this element and give me the index where this element is there. If it doesn't found, it just tells you that it gives you an error in this case, that this element isn't there. Okay. And then you have, so this type is an inbuilt function you've already typed. This is just to check the data type of any variable. And you have slicing similar to string. You can read element at a specific index, or you can read multiple elements ranging from this start index to this stop index, right? So whatever is the stop index, it will always stop just one before it. So it will read the index number 0 and index number 1. Okay, so I'll just stop here and I want you to at least try this part of the code and let me know if you have questions on it, then we'll discuss the further part. There is code, so there are functions to sort the list, to put it in the reverse order, meaning the last element as the first element and the second last as the second element, and so on. Then doing arithmetic manipulations on elements in list. Then there is code to insert an element at a specific list or join two lists, or most important, okay, not most important, but one of the most important ones here is converting this transition from string to list. So you can have a list of strings and then you can join these elements, individual elements. So right now this list has 3 elements, okay, and each of these are strings, so you can join these 3 to form one string. So this is quite an important functionality and we'll discuss why. So you can specify the delimiter here. So when it joins the 3 elements, between element 1 and element 2 and between element 2 and element 3, this delimiter will be used. So you can try this code, run it and see, and then try changing this delimiter and see what happens. So can anyone guess why we would do this conversion from list to string or from string to list? Where do you think that would be helpful? Okay, it's okay. So you can try it out. You can answer next week also. Okay. You have these functions where you can combine 2 lists. You have a list 1 and then you append another, not just an element, but you extend it with another list. So you have list 1, you have list 2, you create a list 3 with list 1 and list 2 contents, or you just extend the list 1 with list 2. So your list 1 suppose had 10 elements, your list 2 had 5 elements. So you extended the list 1 with the list 2. So now your list 1 has 15 elements, everything that list 1 already had, and also at the end, the contents of list 2. And then as we already discussed in the previous class, I think we discussed about cloning, right? So if you don't clone the list, you would be modifying the original list. So in case you wanted the original list to be intact, but you still wanted to try some operations, use list operations, so you could just clone the list and do all the manipulation on the clone, leaving the original one intact. So then you have these group functions where you can find, so if you have numeric data in the list, you could use, so this function works for all collections. So you could use these functions to find the maximum from the elements in a collection, or the minimum. Like if you have 10 numbers in this list, this will give you the maximum, the number which is the max out of all of those, and the min, and this will give you the sum of all the elements. So you could use these aggregate functions to calculate the mean, or do simple mathematical analysis. Like if you wanted to find the average marks, you have a list which has marks of 100 students. So now you don't need to really write a loop to read each element and add it to the sum. Instead, you can just use the sum function, provide the collection as input to it. It will give you the sum of all the 100 elements, which is the marks of 100 students, and divide by the length of the collection. The length is the number of elements, right? So if there were student marks of 100 students, the length is 100. So sum of all the 100 marks and divided by 100 will give you the average marks. And this is a function which is used if you wanted to loop through multiple collections at the same time, right? If you have multiple collections, like you have a tuple containing all names, you have a list containing all marks, you have another list or tuple containing all the grades, and you wanted to loop through all these 3 together, so then you can use them. Okay, so this is the overview of what is there in this file. You have to practice it to understand, and so just complete it and let me know. Let's discuss all the questions on this file today, and let's discuss the questions on sets and dictionaries in the next class, but I expect you to complete that before the next class. So let's try slicing with this one. We have a list which is the weight of elephants in some forest, okay, some geographical specific boundary, some radius. Okay, I have no idea how much an elephant weighs, 1000 kgs or whatever. I'm just putting some dummy numbers here. So just for simplicity, small numbers. Elephants definitely weigh much more than 100. Maybe these are, okay, not even baby elephants. They will be more than this. But okay, fine. I'm just putting some dummy numbers here. Now, let's try to read a slice of this list. So if I just print it like this, it will print the entire thing, right? But I can read a specific index number. If I read the index number 0, what should be the output now?
Only 100.
Yes. So when I read an index, I can either read just a specific index or I can read from start to stop. So if I do 0 to 1, what will be the printout now?
100 and 200.
No, well, actually, so whatever stop I provide, it just goes
Ma'am,
one
100.
than that. It will just give 100 only. Okay. So now it is, so okay, you should notice this difference in the output though. In this case, I got an element 100. When I do slicing, this is still going to read just one element because it stops one before the stop, right? If I've provided stop as 1, it will go only up to 0. But now since I've used a start and stop, the expectation is I'm reading a portion of the list. So it's going to be give me a smaller list. So the output is not just this element 100, but it's a list with a single element. Did you see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but it's still the same element. So now if I provide the stop as 2, it will go from 0 to 1. So it will pick the element at index 0 and index 1. And if I wanted to read it in the reverse order, let's try step size 2. What will be the output of 0 to 4?
I'm 100, 200 and 300.
Okay, so this will give me index 0, 1. Okay, forget about this part. Index 0, 1, 2, and 3. 0, 1, 2, and 3. It will also print 45. If I don't have this one, it will print up to this because this is index 0, this is index 1, this is 2, this is 3. Now if I do this,
100, 300.
right, this is a step size. So if I don't provide this, the default step size is 1. So if I want to change that, I can provide a step size here. So now it has read index 0 and then 0 plus 2, which is index 3, then 3 plus 2, which should have been index 5, but since I provided a stop as 4, it did not print the index 5. But if I move this stop to 6, it will print 20. Okay, now let's try reading from the reverse direction. So if I wanted to read the last element, what index number should I use? What will this print?
30.
30, right? And now if I if I wanted to go from -1 to, say, I wanted it to print up to 300, then what should be the stop here? So if I'm reading in the reverse order, this is index -1, this is -2, this is -3, this is -4, -5, and -6. So what should I provide here?
-1 to -5.
-1.
If I provide -4 here, what would it print?
I'm 30, 20, 45.
Nothing. Why is that? Think about it. Okay, did you see the difference? Like if I didn't provide this, what happened? So I've provided the start and stop, but what is the default step?
+1.
Yes, +1, right? So that wouldn't work, right? I told it to go from -1 to -4, but if I've not provided the step size, it actually doesn't produce anything. So now, because I wanted to read in the reverse order, I also want the step size to be not default, but to be -1. So now what it will do is it will print index number -1, and then -1, the next index would be -1 plus the step is -1, so the next is -2, then the next is -2 -1, which is -3, then the next should be -3 -1, which is -4, but since I've provided stop as -4, it will go just one less than that, so it will go only up to -3. I know this is kind of confusing, so the only way to understand it and be clear with it is to try it. You have to try different variations and see. But just remember that the start, stop, and the start by default is going to be the starting point 0, unless you provide something else. The stop by default is going to be the length, the length of, like if there are 6 elements, by default the stop is going to be 6 here, and the step by default is going to be 1 here, but you can change that. So in what you did in your code was you printed this, okay? This did not return anything. When you invoked sort, what it did was it just modified, manipulated the list. It did in-place sorting. The list is now a modified version of the original. You have all the elements sorted. So if you print this, you are printing the output of whatever this did. The output is none. There's nothing returned. It just did its job. It did not return anything. Okay, you will understand this better when we discuss functions in the next class actually. So right now, if you want to see the change, print the list after invoking this. Okay, so now you see that the list has been modified, right? You see that there is sorting done. There is alphabetical sorting that is quite visible here. So it's actually working. Anything else? So if there are no further questions, we can stop the class here. And feel free to put your questions on the Google Classroom, and please complete the work, and let's discuss all the questions, complete the collections data type next class, and start with functions. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Let's continue in the next class. Bye.